Mr. Josh Morey. How you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you?
Josh, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I want to know this before we get anything too serious. What's something that you are both intrigued and maybe a little scared by at the same time?
It's a great question. Well, so one of my mottos is to do something that scares me every day. And so it just really pushes me out of my comfort zone. I think my worst fear is of heights. And so I haven't quite conquered that fear of going skydiving or anything like that yet. But what I do try to do is anything that's a little uncomfortable, I try to tackle every day. Historically, I've had this fear of just walking up to people, introducing myself. So I try to get out of my comfort zone and doing that every day.
Well, some fears keep you alive in some cases, so I don't know that you need to jump out of a plane. But I mean, if you want to work your way up there, I mean, I guess it's something. For me, Joshua, I got to go with a driveway that I can't see the end to, just the driveway that leads off into nowhere. I'm a little intrigued. I would like to know what's back there. It seems like it might be extravagant, but it also could be very terrifying. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if you ever find that driveway that leads off into the woods. Joshua, I want to move this over into the world of, we'll say, insurance. And where do you think, the people in insurance and the people, calling the shots and putting agencies together and really making the calls, in your experience, what have you witnessed that people are maybe also a little intrigued by, but also scared at the same time? What's something that maybe is holding people back? What's something that they shouldn't be as afraid of as they should, I guess, maybe.
I think the fear of the unknown is huge. In our industry, insurance is all about protecting risk. So if you get into insurance, you probably have that mindset. But I think with the next generation of whether it's an agency owner or insurance companies, I think being able to look forward and be comfortable with some uncertainty and kind of going against what our industry was created for to be able to take extra risk. And you can't really insure like some of these, if you want to grow your agency by 2 times in the next 5 years, what does that take? And you can't buy an insurance product to do that. It's going to be calculated business risk to get there. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Has there been anything that stood out to you as really sort of highlighting that people that you're excited about, areas of the industry that maybe have caught your attention more so than others?
I think too on the agency side, because that's where I come from. My father started our agency in 1980, so this is our 43rd year. So, I have so much respect for everything my dad and uncles did for us. Part of that fear is like, I don't want to mess it up. Like they've created a generation of success. And now I come in and be like, oh, okay, do I just keep it status quo or do I not just carry it on, but do I amplify like all that they've done for 43 years and really exponentially have a bigger impact?
That's very interesting. The idea of messing it up, but at the same time putting your own stamp on things. How do you sort of settle with that idea? Like, what is there certain lines? Is there certain things that you've been said like this is maybe off limits, or it's been this way, like maybe like a logo or something? Is there anything that's off limits, or how do you sort of settle with what you're willing to sort of change and alter and sort of put your own sort of stamp on?
Yeah, so our logo, so I'm Japanese American and our logo is our family crest that's been for generations and it's the three trees. And in Japanese it means forest. And it's funny because my name doesn't look Japanese. It's spelled Morey, but when my great grandfather immigrated from Japan in the late 1800s, it was Mori. Couldn't speak
Mm.
English, and that's how immigration spelled it. And so, to get back to your question, something that is off limits is our name because that speaks to our legacy and our story and our history. And being in our Japanese American community for over 125 years, people know our family, people recognize the name. And so, what is off limits is our name because it speaks to the generations that have gone before me. For our platform, kind of the evolution of our brand is that the J. Morey company and the Morey family being in our community for 125 years, and my dad and uncle starting our insurance agency post World War II. So when I bought my dad and uncles out 3 years ago, I said, well, the J. Morey company and the J. Morey family is one story in our community. There are others, amazing stories. And if you just think about insurance agents and brokers, there's like the Ihara family, the Funakoshi family. There's families throughout Hawaii, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. We're based in LA. But the whole platform of Ori-gen now is remember where you come from, create a new future. And so that's where kind of my risk taking went in is like, I want to continue on these stories like our family story with other agencies that if they sold to another company, their name would be off the door and their legacy and their community
Mm.
would be gone. So that's part of our business model too, is we want to keep the names of these legacy companies, these legacy insurance agencies, yet powered by on the back end Ori-gen, which, as I mentioned, the concept is remember where you come from to create a new future.
My guess is, I'm just going to take a guess, Josh, is, where did they start? Like, what is, has the agency gone through any evolutions in terms of like the businesses, the types of insurance you've sold? Like, what have you gravitated towards a different interest? Has there been any sort of, conversations as to like the direction? What has that experience been like, again, with your dad and your uncle, to where you see maybe the business going, and creating that new future?
Totally. And my dad and uncle started about the second generation into insurance agency ownership. So post World War II, a lot of Japanese Americans came back from the internment camps and started their own insurance agencies. And at that time, the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor. So public enemy number one was the Japanese American
Mm.
community. And like I mentioned, we were sent to internment camps for 2 years, came back, and no insurance company would appoint a Japanese agent. And we had mostly homeowners. I mean, we still had to have car insurance, we still had to have home insurance, umbrella insurance. So the agents at that time banded together and created their own insurance company called Western Pioneer. And
Hmm.
since no insurance company in America would insure our community, we had to create our own. So it was based really around personal lines because that was the need at the time. When my dad and uncle started our company, J. Morey Company, it was very much so a personal lines driven agency. It's evolved definitely since then, where our commercial lines business is 70% of the business compared to
Well,
30% as personal. We've invested in resources to be able to take us up market. And so now, our target clients, yes, we will serve the personal lines, but our target clients are middle market, manufacturing, import, export, hospitality. We've done some work in public agencies now too. So we're really kind of trying to move upstream.
and what were those conversations like? When did that sort of start to happen? Like, is that something that you sort of felt passionate about? Is it something your dad and your uncle sort of started to dabble with? But how did you go from that personal line shop and to now be predominantly, commercial lines focused?
So capacity building is huge in my mind, because how are you going to work for, or how are you going to win a bid for a public contract if your experience has been in personal lines? And so it's taken generations to really build capacity from personal lines to small business. And okay, you've done the small business, we're going to refer you to, an 100 employee company and whatnot. So it has taken generations to kind of build that type of capacity to even win an RFP at a larger level. I think strategically, though, we never had targeted revenue or premium sizes for our sales force. When I came in 3 years ago, really kind of structuring in terms of incentive wise the type of business we're going to go after. And so although it's taken a long time to build capacity, I think strategically, when my dad and uncles retired, I wanted us to be the most efficient, and I want to grow exponentially. So we had to set up the right structure to be able to go after that business.
All right, Josh, you said the word, you said efficient. So I got to know, there's probably something that was top of your list when you came in and said, like, I get to call the shots now. What's that first thing you went after to get the biggest return on that efficiency?
It was technology. It was as simple as we were still scanning documents, and I
Mm.
mean, literally scanning from the insurance carrier, sending it to the client, having them sign it, loading it to our system, and then sending it back to the insurance carrier. It was as easy as, at that time, was InsureSign. We've now moved over to fully Adobe products, but it feels like an easy fix, but it's as easy as, having a DocuSign or Adobe type technology. So that was the first thing I did, and many other things since then. But
Yeah, there is no easy technology shift in insurance, Josh. I'm sure you've probably figured that out. Everything comes with a bit of a struggle. Has there been anything else that has maybe surprised you along the way that maybe gives you a little bit more respect for again the generations that have come before you? Like at some point we think, oh man, these guys are onto something. And was there something that stood out to you that you didn't quite see until you were in the driver's seat?
definitely, so when I first started in the industry, I started off as a commission to only salesperson in the agency. So I literally started by selling personal lines auto, and
Hmm.
I had all my family and friends that I was hitting up, like, who is your auto insurance with? And when I brought up my dad and uncles, becoming an agency owner is, I mean, there's so many things that I don't know. And so I will tip my hat to, we have a consultant called Marshberry that I have just learned so much from in terms of like revenue for, per employee, what is targeted EBITDA, how do you structure it in a way that every employee in the organization feels like they have a pathway in their future. Yeah, like my viewpoint from starting of just trying to sell to now running an agency. And but I would say, having been through the whole process and kind of wearing every hat within our company, I feel like I try to make decisions in light of being in that seat where these decisions are going to affect.
Yeah, and making that transition, we've talked a little bit about it, but I guess getting right to it. Do you have any sort of advice for somebody that might be on the cusp of that sort of perpetuation? Is there anything that you said you guys brought in a consultant? I don't know if they were sort of in the middle of that process as well. What advice would you give to somebody going through that process? It sounds like you guys sort of had everything at least somewhat. It sounds like it was a pretty smooth transition. Would there be any tips that you have for another agent that's, like I said, on the cusp of taking over, and how they can easily change of the guard?
Yeah, and it takes time. So I think our process took about 4 years to figure out. So
Mm.
there's the economic piece of the founding generation. You've built such a great company, right? And then there's the next piece of, okay, so how you want to retire? How do you get paid out? Is there one person, or is there now an ownership group who has to be able to? I mean, do you take a second mortgage on your house, or do you take a line of credit? It takes time to figure out all the aspects. And the one piece of the economic side of it, you can't just do it overnight. There has to be a preparation for the new ownership group coming in. So I'd say, if you're thinking about it, you have to start the process, because it's not going to happen overnight. The second piece, operationally, you have a generation that founded a company, and that in their mind, it's hard to turn over because they've done it this way for a certain amount of time. Having that next generation of starting to have the power to lead, and not saying that they have to, and that's a process as well, right? And so there's empowerment. So there's got to be a willingness on both sides to be able to make perpetuation work.
You said empowerment. Did you have a moment? Was there like when your dad came to you, your uncle, and they sort of gave you a responsibility that you weren't sure you were ready for? Like, oh, you're going to let me do this? Did you have a sort of like I feel like it's like a movie trailer moment, like kind of your eyes light up. And you're like, oh, really? I can?
I think it was the other way around. I think it was, you have to let me lead here. I have these great
Mm.
ideas. How can I convince you to be able to give me the authority and to be empowered to make these decisions? And I think that does really come from a founding generation of, they've done it so long a certain way and had success for this amount of time.
What was the one moment of convincing that you feel was the most successful, where you felt like, all right, I think I got him now?
Uh, it was tough. I don't know if there was just a single moment. I think it was being proactive to show the ownership group, and the ownership group being my family. So my dad and uncles, and probably their microscope was even a lot more magnified than if it wasn't family. And so I had to be incredibly proactive. Like, what do you think about this idea? And almost even executing the idea before I even propose, like, we should do this. It's like, I'm just going to do it. I'm
Mm.
going to show the worth. And so it doesn't take a year to be able to say, can I get approval to implement this process? I just kind of did it. Like, wait, how? Well, what did you? That's really cool.
Well, they say it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, Josh, and I guess that's true for you as well.
Sound like my dad.
That's the first time anybody said that to me. I'll have to think about how I feel about that one. Maybe I'm getting old. Josh, is there, I mean, as you look back at everything and sort of where you started in the agency to where you are now, is there anything that has maybe surprised you along the way? Did you maybe expect to be here? Is this something that you kind of feel like you're where you should be? Is there something that you found to be wildly different than maybe your expectations were set out on?
Yeah, I had, so where we're at right now today is, when I bought my dad and uncles out, we were an 18-person, insurance broker. We spent a year just thinking and dreaming about this Ori-gen concept. And, once we launched Ori-gen and where we're at today, we've gone from 18 employees to over 150 in a year and a half. Is that what I planned? No, that wasn't the plan at all. I think what I'm learning about myself too is, if you stick to your values, and if you stick to a truly missional concept that drives you, good things will happen. I was happy with just to continue on our family's legacy. And then when I started thinking a little bit bigger of what's meaningful to me at the end, it had nothing to do with how much money, it had nothing to do with how big we got. It had everything to do with, can I play a role in the community that I came from to carry to the next generation? And then thinking beyond just my story to the other stories within diverse communities. That's what we're, really targeting throughout America. I'm surprised every day. I still don't I don't think I still realize that like our company's over 150 employees, and that happened overnight. So it's surprising, but I think it does just give me confidence speaking to like, what are we about? Yes, we do insurance, but is there something else missionally that is driving us forward? And I think that's where we're getting a lot of our growth from.
So why don't you explain that a little bit more? Take me inside that like you said, I mean, almost overnight sort of transition. That's got to be a lot to sort of get your hands around. I'm
Oh
sure a
yeah.
lot of agency owners are saying, "What's going on there?" So what is going on there, and what do you really attribute to like how did you take that and see that sort of exponential growth?
I think it starts internal for what's meaningful to me. And that's what I had just mentioned. What was meaningful to me was my part in our community. How do you translate that from a mom and pop shop to, as we're growing and maybe we'll be 500 employees in the next 3 years? Who knows? There's so much to learn. We had never been through an audit before. We're going through one right now. Access to capital is huge. How do we continue to either buy or partner with agencies with, leveraging our own personal capital? I mean, that has been such a learning experience to me. How do you maintain a culture that within a company that it's easy to do or easier to do when it's 18 employees, but now having it be 150, your culture has to be solid and has to be felt from the top down. So all these things, I mean, I don't have a playbook or anything like that. I kind of have looked at what others have done, but it has to be very unique to us and genuine. But I honestly, like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it feels right.
It might be one of the bigger understatements I've maybe heard on this podcast, but we'll leave it there. Acquisition. I mean, take me a little bit deeper. So, was it a little acquisition, a little bit more expansion in terms of like product offering? Like what did you really find to be one of the more drivers to success for you?
Yeah, so it has been mainly through acquisition, but the culture of the company, if you just have an M&A strategy, that's not really a strategy to me. Like, yeah, say we're doing, we're rolling up or aggregating, that's not a strategy. It has to speak to the culture of the company. So, we've developed this sales culture where organic growth is definitely key, and that just speaks to the culture of the sales team. And so if we continue to acquire, then you build in this 15% growth margin over 5 years, you double in size anyways. Through M&A, through a sales culture, we continue this engine or this flywheel that just keeps on spinning. The other parts of that is that we've diversified some of our product offering. We do benefits now, just launched our 401k retirement plan platform. We're focusing in on specific verticals of business. So having a Japanese practice, having a Korean practice,
Mm,
Chinese practice soon, a public entity
wow.
practice. So yeah, focusing in on different strategies between M&A, organic growth, culture, and then vertical specialization.
Yeah, that's so you're saying it's you can't just acquire without like you said that mindset of making sure the business is growing because it will just become stagnant. But then I'm also
Right.
interested if you could take me inside sort of that decision to even break down like you said the specific to go Japanese, Chinese. Like I mean somebody might just I mean overlook that and say like have you found like that makes a meaningful difference of splitting the business even further down into segments?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think as we've grown, being able to create teams where people feel like they're giving leadership. So the more
Mm,
that people feel they're involved in the decision making, and what I'm doing here and the leadership I'm giving is benefiting this company. So rather than having it just being top down driven, we can create verticals of business or even geographic areas of leadership so that people feel empowered to lead, and then they attract good talent and good people too.
Yeah, and you think that's again that I was gonna say that's something that could apply beyond just again the language or whatever classification. You could really just set that upon any sort of parameters that you want. Do you guys have eyes on anything else? Like you said, geographic. Is there anything else that you're sort of noodling on?
Yeah, definitely. Geographically, we're launching our New York office this summer. We're looking for expansion in Florida, Texas, and in the Northwest. Right now, we're heavily centered in California and Hawaii. Just being frank, our mission is for diverse communities. What we've done in the
Mm.
past year and a half has been really focused around the Asian American community or Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community. But now as we're looking forward, we're looking, what can we do in the African American community? What can we do in the Latin American community? Woman-owned businesses in other diverse agencies.
All right, Joshua, if you had to give me one tip, if you had to give one tip to an agency, whether it's the owner or whether it's somebody maybe coming up in the ranks that's next in line, what's maybe the most meaningful thing that you could say to them that would give them the best shot of sort of maybe that exponential growth they might be achieving?
I don't think people realize how amazing our industry is. And I'm talking about the insurance industry from the agent and broker perspective. I feel with 92% retention on average, we are a very stable business. And then you have rates rising, so that offsets. So if you do nothing, you're going to be fine. I believe we live in the greatest country in the world, in the greatest economy in the world, and now in the greatest industry in the world. So I think coming from that mindset is like this is an amazing business. So if you're in the best place at any business in the world, how are you not thinking about the perpetuation of your agency? And so you have to start somewhere, right? And so if you really view your business as being the best, you have to start planning as if you are the best. And that takes a period of time. So whether it's identifying young talent that you don't have in your agency at the time, or if you do have the young talent, being able to empower them to make decisions and identifying them, communicating with them that you are the next generation of this company, I think is key. So if you can understand that, identify that, and then start a process of this is what it's going to look like. It might take 5 years to really implement and execute, but you got to start somewhere. I mentioned Marshberry. They were great. I mean, they've been an incredible, vital part of our success. But there's other consultants out there too, like the Reagans and regional advisors that can assist with this.
All right, Josh, I got three more questions for you, sir. And the first one is, what is one thing you hope you never forget?
I hope I never forget where I come from. Going back to that story of if I have a hard decision at any point in this day today or in the years to come, I have this reference point of right after World War II, my grandparents were given, weeks to pack up two bags and were sent to internment camps for 2 years. Like I can't forget where I've come from because that's what I'm dealing with today is nothing compared to what they had to deal with. So, with that frame of reference, I have a duty to honor what they've done. And so I personally will say I'll never forget that. But, the question you asked, I hope I do never forget it.
Now, on the other side of that, Josh, what's one thing you still have yet to learn?
I still have yet to learn a lot. I think in particular, there's a lot on the business end of things that I don't know. That I'm realizing that as our company's growing. So having a mindset of doing something that scares me every day because it pushes me out of my comfort zone. But secondarily, it's if I want to continue to grow and make the impact that we're going to have, I personally have to get better. I need to know more about finance. I need to know more about acquisition strategies. I need to know about organic growth sales strategies, how to build the right culture. So I need to personally evolve into the chairman, the CEO, the president, the leader that I need to be.
All right, Josh, last question to you, sir. If I were to hand you a magic wand of sorts to reshape, change, alter, speed up, really any part of insurance, what's that thing? Where is it going? And what's it doing?
I love that we're ending on this question because I think that there's certain barriers that have kept communities like ours or diverse communities from not participating or being able to compete on an equal playing field. And so I truly do, and I live diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just not feel, but I believe that it's better business. The more competition you have in the marketplace, the less barriers to entry or the less barriers to success. The end product is going to be a better product. And at the end of the day, we serve our clients. And if our clients have a better product and there's more access to competition, I think it's a better marketplace.
Josh, has been fantastic. I'm going to leave it right there, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.